I will just press the record button so people can see it. So our first one is, your style is somewhat unique to politics, but such a key part of your image. Where does that come from, and who are your style inspirations?
Do you know, I've never had a stylist, but I don't know, like I guess it comes from a place of comfort more than anything else. So it's like, of course, I used to wear a yellow hat all the time. People will always try to find some sort of symbolism in that, like why specifically yellow? I'm like, it's got nothing to do with the Lib Dems, of course, but it's like the color of the sun, custard. I don't know, but it's just, I just basically would like, I just like the color yellow basically. So it didn't really represent much. It's quite funny. Other people would always look for meaning for things and stuff, but I always just basically would just, I always wear my Doc Martin boots, and it's something I always have. That's something people kind of pick up, but it's like, I think it's just trying to bring a bit of authenticity into politics, especially when everyone can look the same and dress the same and just kind of be a bit pale. So I just kind of try and bring a bit of my character, a bit myself, like outwardly to people. And I've always found that people tend to engage a lot more because I guess they kind of just see you as someone who's being themselves basically, rather than trying to adapt and kind of just change who they are to kind of fit some sort of environments.
Yeah, like on the same level as you. You kind of see that. That's really cool. Thank you.
But in Parliament, like in Westminster, apparently you have to wear a tie, I heard.
Yeah, I mean, you'd get some pretty odd looks, I think, if you weren't wearing them. I mean, I literally had to like completely not change the way I dress, but I had to dress smart. So that was an experience. But yeah, I wouldn't see anyone.
This is where it is, right? For example, right, if you invite me to your wedding, Abbie, right, I'd wear a suit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like some people think I'm like anti-suit or anti kind of like, no, I'm not, but it's like, if it's like a really, it's just, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I like it.
It is true that with the dress, I was looking at, obviously we did a bit of research, and there was the picture of you outside of Strasbourg when you went down for the plenary sitting. I think it must have been your first time as an MEP, and sort of got turned away because I can't imagine your traditional choice of clothing is what, your more MEPs wear.
You know what it is? It's like, in my opinion, it had nothing to do with what I learned, because there was other people that were wearing T-shirts. The Lib Dems are wearing their bollocks to Brexit T-shirts, and there were some other Irish people who were wearing basically T-shirts and stuff. But I think the fact that, like, whether I was wearing a T-shirt, just because I guess the security guards and people who were working there, whether just basically someone realized, well, this guy doesn't look like he definitely works here and stuff like that. Whether depending that down to age or what I was wearing. Maybe I think it's just a cultivation, like a mix of different things, to be honest. And then to be told, what do you call it, that I need to kind of leave the building was quite ridiculous. But it's like, so in my opinion, like they would have seen other people wearing T-shirts in that place. I don't, like, people say like, well, my T-shirt was offensive. Like, well, who's it offensive to? Like, if you're a fascist, then I can understand why it'd be offensive. But it's like, it wasn't necessarily something like, it was just a black T-shirt with some white text. And fair enough, it was a roasting day. So I just basically had shorts on. So it's like, it was just basically all quite odd, to be honest. And it's not something that's specifically exclusive to the European Parliament in Strasbourg. It's like, if you go to loads of different establishments all over the UK, wherever it is, basically, it's like, if you don't tend to kind of fit a certain narrative, or you instantly become some sort of threat or make people feel uncomfortable, or people think, well, this person clearly does not belong here, because I guess we've all been socially conditioned to some degree of what we expect our politicians to look like, behave like. And when someone looks slightly different, I reckon like it kind of just messes up, and it's like, well, this person doesn't belong, surely can't be a politician. But it's like, put it this way, like it became very quickly after that, like the people in Parliament, whether that be in Brussels or Strasbourg, whether that be the people that work in the kitchen or the porters or whatever, they all got quite accustomed to me, and they're all really lovely.
Oh, that's nice.
During your time as an MEP, you know, you got a sort of an insight into the inner workings of the EU, which is possibly not the UK's most popular institution at this point in time. And I was just from sort of what kind of things did you learn that give you hope for sort of the future of a European project, and was there anything that gave you any sort of great concern moving forwards?
Definitely. You know, it's like the European Union is by no way like some sort of safe haven of progressive ideas. It's like there's a lot that is kind of wrong with it. Like, it's like they, of course, like it's, for example, the way they've kind of, in terms of like showing compassion, or like the way they've been dealing with the whole migration crisis, is basically just, let's not talk about it and throw money at it, and that's not going to solve anything. And it's like, I get it, it's a collection of member states and they've all basically make their own decisions, but I just feel like as if like they've not really stepped up to the mark and stuff. And it's like, of course, in terms of what gives me hope, like honestly, there were a lot of great MEPs. Like the crazy thing about it is like in the European Parliament, you get all spectrums. You get some literally like white supremacists, like the Golden Dawn in Greece. That you got some like proper like communists as MEPs. So you got everything basically, right? But there are like there's some amazing people, there's some shit people, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and it's because like when you go to like, because I visited different European cities for different events, meetings, stuff like that, they do like everywhere I went to had some degree of identity of being European, and just basically just, whereas I kind of felt like in the UK we've never like, so for example, when I was campaigning to get elected, I was traveling around Yorkshire and Humber, I'd always, every meeting or like, I'd always ask, can anyone show their hands if you know who your MEP is? And nobody knew. Like, there's people could not, like, say in a room of 100, probably 2 people would know, right? But most people, and there was kind of just this lack of engagement. And like, for example, the way they choose their commission president, she's unelected, to like to put it blankly. Fair enough, like it's the parliament have to ratify it, but she's the only option. So it's like, what sort of democracy is it? Where it's like, yeah, you can vote for her, but she's the only option. It's like, well, you're either for or against her, and that's it. And then people just end up struggling. And there like, is at times, like, I'll be honest with you, like a lot of deals that are made during basically backroom deals and stuff like that. And you're like, where are all the front room deals? And it's like, I'm not like even a Brexiteer, in all honesty, but it really did frustrate me. And I remember I wrote an op-ed on Politico about a lot of my frustrations with the European Parliament and the EU, and I got absolutely lambasted by the FPPE kind of pro-hardcore Remain camp, and I got championed by the Brexit Party. The Brexit MPs were like retweeting, say, "Oh, thank you for being honest. Come and join us." I was like, "Wait a minute, like, listen, like, I love the EU enough, the fact that I want it to be the best version of itself. So I am going to be honest and critical. I'm not going to." It's like it was as if like it was completely binary, and you couldn't basically. It was like you were at war and you had to kind of choose one side or the other. Whereas I was like, listen, like it's European Union is a great vehicle, whether that be for tackling climate change or whatever. There's like loads of benefits to it. Is it perfect? No, by any stretch of the imagination. But it's the fact that I believe in trying to reform that. Fair enough, people would argue that European Union can never be reformed. It was only, I think, like not this the last 5 years ago that the MEPs, that the Parliament could actually start amending legislation and stuff like that. Whereas before, currently at the moment, it's only the Commission that can propose legislation. You can just basically amend it and send it back and just like basically say like the House of Lords and stuff. But it is always a negotiation. So like every MEP would sit on different committees. So the committees that I sat on was the current affairs, home affairs and migration. So it was like, that was one committee. And then the other committee I was sat on was education and culture. So I did a lot of like working with migrants, but also arts and culture. So I had the legislative file for the Creative Europe program. And it would literally be a case of negotiating with, you got some legal linguists there sat with you, you've got your own advisor, and you've got like the council, representative from the council, from the commission, and you're all literally bartering like what words you're gonna change and use, and like changing the word could to will is a massive win. Like it's kind of like it's like that line of it means that it will happen, not like it could happen. So you get rid of grey areas, and that would be seen like a. So you do get small wins like that. Sorry, I'm going on a different tangent, but it's like the European Union as a whole. It's like you would have thought like it's look at like Italy's response at the moment with the whole COVID-19 crisis in Spain. They actually, the Europeans have had to actually come out and apologise by the way they've handled it and not showing solidarity or as much support as they should have. And as a result, there is this growing sense of Euro skepticism that is happening on the back of the COVID crisis. And there's a lot of far-right groups who are taking advantage of that. So it is really, I feel like it is a pivotal moment for the European Union in terms of how it really tackles this. And it's like, are they going to give those bonds out to those countries like that are desperately needing it for their economy? And it's like, what is the ultimate test of solidarity apart from the general rhetoric or like, yeah, we should show sort of what does it actually look like in practice? And is that something you're going to actually follow through? Is a lot of questions that need to be answered.
That's a lot of food for thought, I think, for all of us. It's very interesting. You once described yourself as not politically savvy, but you knew that you cared about certain issues. Does that description still fit you, and have those issues changed over time?
You know, like, I remember when I ran for student union president when I was at Hull, and I think like the previous 10 student union presidents were all come from a politics background, and specifically the Labour Party, so they're part of things like the Labour Club. And Hull in itself is a very political students' union. And because you got people like Prescott, Tom Watson, you got so many like even Tory and loads of like their politics department was really quite strong. So it's just always had a very politics-based kind of background. But I remember when I kind of stood to be a candidate, because I came from a sports background, but I never really was involved in party politics. I kid you not, even when I was, I couldn't tell the difference between left and right. And I just literally knew the issues that I cared about. I knew I wanted to eradicate the hidden cost of university fees. I knew I wanted to provide safe transport for students back to student accommodation. I knew I wanted to campaign for free education. So I knew the issues I kind of cared about. But in terms of party politics, it just went completely over my head. And I even remember being asked at the hustings if I was going to join the picket line. And I just remember thinking to myself, what on earth is a picket line? So I just completely gambled and I said yes. I just got a round of applause. But it was like, in terms of my political education, like wasn't basically there. It was more of an issues based. And I guess the moment I kind of just realized I was a bit different politically to my counterparts was when we went to NUS conference, and my other kind of fellow delegates, when it came to a vote if we're going to vote for free education, we have to report back to our council how we voted. I was the only one that voted in favor of that. And it completely baffled me in terms of like, well, so I think once I left university, I literally went to kind of just sort of self-educate myself by forcing myself to watch politics, daily politics to begin with, and watching a lot of YouTube videos. There's a guy called the artist taxi driver, Mark Gowans, and on YouTube's YouTube channel, who I think is hilarious and great. But yeah, so I just kind of started like reading articles, watching like YouTube videos, and just trying to educate myself a little bit more. In terms of how do I still believe like those issues still, they're 100% like it's one of the reasons I joined the Green Party at the beginning was they were the only party that had a red line against austerity when all the other parties didn't. Labour Party weren't an anti-austerity party in 2014. So it was like free education, like and keeping the NHS free at all costs, anti-austerity. They were the things that brought me like in like kind of like what grounded me in politics to begin, just because they were things that I was like, especially austerity, seeing firsthand the devastating impact it was having within my community. And I guess those issues are still there for me as well.
Do you think that forms part of your appeal, this idea that you're sort of a non-conventional, you don't have a traditional, you didn't have that politics education, and you then deliberately did this to sort of follow a path, politics, but rather it sort of came more organically? Do you think that's part of your appeal?
I guess so, in some way. And I think people in that aspect kind of may see me as, I guess, in a breath of fresh air, just because I've not been, I guess, trained or necessarily come through a traditional route into politics. And people, but politics is something that is always around me and is shaped part of my identity, like my background. But it's like, I think it does resonate. I think people can see like the fact that whether that be how different I am, that I may have not come from a politics background. So I think that does definitely play up to my appeal. But at the same time, honestly, I reckon one of the reasons why I do have a lot of support and I kind of do engage a lot of people, whereas as much as it is like my way of going about politics and doing things differently, of being creative and just at times being a bit provocative and stuff, but it is also, I feel, kind of a failed democracy in the sense of, if we look at all the people that we elect to be our leaders, whether that be in government or local government, they do not reflect the people that they're there to represent. Like if you look at the Tory cabinet who are making all the decisions that are going to affect everyone in the UK, 90% of them all come from a specific class of background, privately educated. So it's like, how are they really going to understand what child poverty is? Like, and they're going to make actual decisions for everyone in the entire country. So if we did have like a real diversity in our leadership, would that be getting more people from the LGBT community, more women, more, so just to kind of really be a mirror to our society? I think we'd have a more fair and just, we'd be living in a more fair and just society, but I don't think we've got that at the moment.
What would you say are sort of the biggest, what kind of changes do you think we would need to drive participation in the sort of lower turnout, lower engagement demographics, which are sort of LGBT, younger people, you know, minorities? What do you think we would need to do on a political level to really drive that, so that in 15, 20, 30, 40 years, we can say that our representatives are a much better picture of the UK as it is?
Yeah. I think there's two things that would be absolutely amazing and would be revolutionary if it happened in the UK. So one of them would be if we lowered the voting age, and so 16, 17-year-olds and can vote. Because it seems a bit baffling to me, the fact that, of course, you hear the arguments that you can get married, join the army, do so many other things. But it's like, we expect people to take part in democracy, like, and actually vote and understand what's happening. I can't remember what philosopher it was that basically said that voting is a skill. You need to know how to vote, why you're voting for, so to kind of like really have some sort of impact. But it's like, we can't be telling young people, oh, listen, you're too young, you don't understand what's happening, you can't vote, this is not a place for you. And then when they're 18, throw them in the deep end and say, listen, now you can vote and stuff like that. So I think lowering the voting age, I'll be quite honest with you, like, more 16, 17-year-olds that I know are a lot more clued up than some adults that I know. So to say the fact that they are not educated enough, or they don't really understand, so they should be voting, is a complete, like, ridiculous joke to me. That would be incredible. And also, when they start, like, but I think it goes one thing, you can't have voting without the, like, education. Like, in terms, I'm not saying start, like, discussing party politics, but in terms of, like, how to bring about change, or, like, kind of like, I don't know what PHSC whatever covers at the moment, but I think that political education and non-partisan education at school at an early age would kind of give them the skills to sift through all the bullshit that you get for all the press and media. So when it comes to, like, they'll be more engaged from a young age. So it means those habits will continue for the rest of their lives, basically. So I think starting off young is great, but also I think changing our voting system to, like, proportionate representation, like, across, I think UK is the only Western country or whatever like that, I think hasn't got a form of hasn't got a form of proportional representation in some form. And of course, the Tories and Labour, for that matter, aren't necessarily wanting to change it because it serves in their best interest, because it will always make it a two-horse race. But if we're serious about the people taking back control and giving the many and not the few a meaningful vote, we need to really give them an actual say, and not always falling in between having to vote the lesser of two evils, or basically being forced to vote something that you don't necessarily want. And I think that would really be key in terms of giving a lot of power back to people and really changing Britain forward. And I think, yeah, and I think, like, I think the only other country that has got first pass is, like, the Vatican State or something. And it's like, it's so completely outdated. And it's like, if we're we bang on about democracy all the time, I feel like, yeah, it's just difficult.
I feel like with COVID-19, like, a lot, when I met some of the Danish Parliament came over when I was working this year, and they were just fascinated by, like, the whole kind of purpose of tradition and how everything was kind of the same for almost 700 years. And I feel like COVID-19 has actually maybe given us the kickstart to be like, actually, we can do this online. We can do voting electronically. We can maybe update the system. I feel like maybe fingers crossed, they could kind of see this as like, oh, actually, you know, we don't have to stick to tradition that we've stuck to for however long. But I mean, we'll see.
I completely like. I always say like tradition is peer pressure from dead people, right? And it's like, you know, like we used to have. They're talking about there's some great traditions, and there was some shit tradition. There was a tradition where women weren't allowed to vote, and we all came to our senses and thought, well, that's actually quite ridiculous. We should kind of change that. So this whole kind of like really holding on to like ridiculous things is just counterproductive, and it just makes everything basic worse. And you think like, you're right. Christ, like it's COVID-19 is a great opportunity to really bring about fundamental change. Fair enough, it shouldn't come on the back of a crisis, but it does opportunity. Like, who would have thought, like in January, that the government would have been renationalising the railways, even though it is temporarily. But it's like it's everything that we got told wasn't possible, all of a sudden does become possible. But in my opinion, we just happen to have the worst people in power at the worst possible time. So in terms of getting those really progressive fundamental changes, I don't necessarily kind of got much faith in actually seeing them happening. Like it's in 2008 when we had the global financial crash, that was a great opportunity to really restart everything and just provide a different answer to our solution. You would have thought the whole capitalist structure would have kind of like taken a different turn of giving us a new model, but in effect, it was just like more, we just got really severe austerity. And it's like now, when capitalism at the moment, I feel like it's a bit of it's on a pause. It's like, what's going to happen? Is the government going to say, because I think it was Rishi that said all this money is going to have to be repaid somehow. So we're just going to go turbo austerity when it's completely unpopular. And Boris himself said that austerity is finished. So I just feel like there is real opportunity to really do things different and come up with new models and stuff. But it's just that I haven't got faith in the people and the architects of making that model.
Yeah, I have to agree. This is completely off topic, but if we saw a revival of Magid Magid, the submission magician for the WWE, who would you want your first fight to be against?
If I was in the WWE, like, I'll be quite frank with you, I've not watched WWE in a long time. Oh, you mean, does it have to be a wrestler or does it have to be...
No, it could be anyone.
Oh, great. I always think, you know, sometimes I always used to think to myself, oh, it'd be so great, you know, during the election period, right? It's like, if they had, as well as the hustings and stuff like that, but if they really had other kind of challenges, like, for example, a baking one, that'd be interesting to see who's a better baker. Like, just other kind of, like, or like a sumo wrestling match, see who would win that. But anyway, it'd probably be someone like, do you know, fucking Mark Francois. I would love to fight Mark Francois. Like, oh God, I'd love to kick him in his shins, but yeah, I'd say Mark Francois. I just find him frustrating, to be honest.
Fair enough. I love that. That's a good question.
Yeah. Staying nice and off topic. You took part in The Hunted season 3, and you know, and I know you had you had some sort of opinions of that. How would you say getting caught by the hunters? That ranking sort of career disappointments for you?
You know what it is, right? Just in terms of Hunted, right? It's, think about it. I never watched it before I applied. Like my friend and sister were really obsessed with it, and then I kind of looked into it and I thought it was amazing, but it's not real. Like you got a GPS tagging you everywhere you go. You've got 3 to 4 camera people everywhere you go. It's all kind of, and in effect, the storyline's all written in advance of actually kind of going. So it's no surprise kind of like when you know you're going to get caught, but you just don't know when and how kind of thing. So it was like, it's not a case of like, if that was a case, if you're literally just going to evade capture, I'd hide in my mate Barry's basement wearing a balaclava for 25 days and there you go. Like no one's going to see me. But it's like, every time you look at, like every time you kind of watching, you're like, oh my God, why are they going to their mum's house? They're stupid. You have to. Like, it's like, but it was like, even though the hunters are going to be like, you have to do certain things at certain times and whatnot. And there's one rule that says there's a set of rules and then the rules can change. And it's like, it is kind of drama, really. And it's like honestly, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't go on it. I would not have gone on it, but I don't regret going on it just because I did meet some amazing people. And it did mean that I went hitchhiking. Like, around Wales. And it's like, because they really want to depict this really struggling character. And I wasn't struggling. Like, I would like, the lot of time the clip that they showed me was always me in the woods and stuff like that. I think I see the woods out of the 20 days I was there, like 5 days. The rest of the time I was like in cities, staying with random people and whatnot. But it was, they kind of like, it's kind of this drama narrative led, and it's like meant to keep you nervous. And I really didn't kind of feel, I just got told it at the end that I was a bit too resilient to it, you know, so I didn't kind of like fall into, but it's like, yeah, it was kind of disappointing, but I kind of knew in advance because there was a lot of internal problems and I nearly walked out, and it was just loads of things. So I knew my time was basically, so it wasn't that much of a show. So even that bit when I got caught was a reenactment of me getting caught. So, can we get actually, so it was just like, yeah, it's interesting. I hope I've not spoiled it for anyone, but it's still, honestly, it is a good, exciting show because you feel like you're on the run and you're kind of like, yeah, I can see why it's exciting for sure. That's
fair enough. I feel like a lot of telly shows are like that now, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
Going back to Sheffield, a lot of us want to know what your favourite place to go out in Sheffield is, and also what you think is one of the most underrated places.
You know, so I love the Picture House Social on Abbeydale Road.
Yeah, me too.
That. But do you know what? There's something about West Street Live that just lures me in for some reason. And it's like, I don't know, it's always the last place that's open. But it was just, and there's just the weird characters that you meet in West Street Live. And it's, I remember like it's, even at the end when I got elected in as an MEP, and the count was at Leeds, we just ended up coming back to Sheffield. And just going to West Street Live, and I don't know what it was, but it's just, I just quite like West Street Live. An underrated place. There's this really amazing Yemeni restaurant on the Wicker called Diafa, which is just incredible, that I kind of love, basically.
It's a top tip for everyone watching.
The top tip that we're going to have to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely do.
Having just sort of, you've done a lot of local politics in and around Sheffield, and then you obviously were MEP for the Sheffield, Yorkshire, Humber region. In terms of winning over voters in Sheffield and Yorkshire, those who voted Leave in 2016 and those who are probably more inclined to vote Conservative both in 2019 and moving forward, what kind of steps would you think the Green Party would have to take to try and convince some of those people to vote for them?
Do you know what, like, the political landscape's always changing. Like, who would have like thought, like, I can remember thinking 2016 was the worst year. A lot of people saying 2016 was the worst year ever. And then you're like, 2020 is just like, you might as well write the year off, basically. It's been that terrible. But and like, honestly, politics is always changing. But I think with the Green Party, I think it is just a case of, I don't know, it's like listening to people. But I think, for me, honestly, my politics is like rooted from a grassroots perspective. And even when I was campaigning like to get elected as an MEP and visiting a lot of Leave areas, like my campaign slogan was "Immigrants make Britain great," and I would wear a T-shirt every single day campaigning that said "Immigrants make Britain great." So I was completely unapologetic. I wasn't being ambiguous. I was like, "This is who I am. I am loudly and proudly for all these things." And you can either vote for me, and if not, I'm going to try and change your mind and try and like discuss it. And I'd always be completely kind, but I'd always be forthright and apologetic and everything I kind of believe in. And it's, of course, that rubs some people up the wrong way. But as a result, I think a lot of times people really resonated with that, just being completely honest, upfront and direct, and not trying to, I think sitting on the fence never really kind of trying to please everyone. Like, if you're trying to be everyone's cup of tea, you might as well be a mug. Like, it just doesn't work, basically. So I just always try and completely be basic, just stand up for what I believe in. And I think, like, I don't think I've got a secret, like how the Green Party can do whatever. And it's like, if I'm being quite honest with you, I've just always done whatever I wanted to do. I've never had anyone that's told me you should do this, you should do that, or this is your campaign strategy. I've literally just always, like, I've always made it think like, listen, I don't care. I don't like things getting in my way, that'd be the green part, whether like saying you need to be doing that. So I've just basically just done what I've basically thought was right and kind of just ran with that.
It's really nice. We're coming up to our final 5 minutes. Zoom have just reminded me.
How many questions have we asked? Are left?
We just go with the flow.
Okay, we just keep going. Sorry.
I think a lot of people want to know like what your next move is, whether it's in politics or a different avenue. Like, what's next?
Yeah. So I've just currently I've just finished writing a book which comes out in September, which is called The Art of Disruption: A Manifesto for Real Change, and it's basically a guide to being courageous, doing better, but more importantly, kind of disrupting those age-old power structures in work, life, and politics. And it's based around a list of 10 commandments and living like that I kind of basically designed. So that's basically the content picture. So I'll be doing I don't know if I'll be doing a national book tour anymore because of the COVID crisis, but I'll be doing that. But in terms of listen, I've always been an activist first and foremost. So that me being an activist is not going to change, whatever medium that takes. And honestly, at the moment, I'm just weighing up a couple of options and stuff like that and just deciding what to do and stuff. But currently at this moment, it is just nice having a bit of a break because literally from May 2018, when I became Lord Mayor of Sheffield, till end of February, it has literally just been completely non-stop. And I kid you not, from May 2018 till 1st of March, I think I only actually cooked twice. It was literally just that busy. I was always eating at restaurants, I just completely just on the go. So it's silver lining all the whole COVID crisis just basically enabled me to kind of really sit down, reflect, and just kind of work on different things and stuff. So I quite welcome it. But I'm just at the moment where I'm just weighing up a couple of different options and stuff like that. And the next month or so, I'll basically be taking it forward.
Cool.
Perfect. For everyone to watch.
Yeah, everyone buy Magid's book when it comes out. Can't wait. Oh, I think we just want to say a massive thank you. I don't know, is there any important question we've missed?
No, we're both really grateful that you've had the time to talk to us for a little bit. And thank you so much.
Thank you guys. I'm sure it's not easy trying to do this during everything that's happening and stuff like that. So thank you for putting this on as well.
Of course. We'll probably share it. We'll share it with Polstock and it will go on Facebook and we're happy to tag, if you're happy for us to tag your...
Yeah. No, grand.
Oh, thank you so much, Magid. Honestly.
No, thank you. And have a lovely rest of your day, guys.
You too.
You too. Enjoy the rest of your bank holiday. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Good.
Did you stop the recording?